You're watching the PoliticIt podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of PoliticIt Dixie. Today I am here with Senator Evan Vickers and excited to have a little conversation. Glad he could make the trip all the way down here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and so we want to. There's a lot to talk about this summer in the state of Utah. We've had a lot with the fires, the floods. I know you have had a lot of interesting experiences engaging with people on these issues that are happening in kind of really extraordinary conditions, I would say, for the state of Utah this summer.
Absolutely. You know, if you followed the news, and most people have because it's been so prominent, the fires that are going on, I just saw a figure this week that we're over 500,000 acres, fire that's been burning in the state of Utah, which is astronomical, really. It's a combination of a lot of things. One that's really hit home for me is the Beaver fire, right? Because I grew up in Beaver and spent my childhood and a lot of my adult life, going over those mountains that have been burning. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the catastrophic flood that was right after that came down through the canyon, and that all funnels. That's the whole watershed for the Beaver County, really. It ends up all the way down to Melford, and then it funnels down Beaver Creek, And so it's been really difficult. Then you've got the Wide Mouth fire over by Kanosh that's burning. It's been rampant the last few days. It's over 100,000 acres, threatening to close down I-70. And it's just, and then other parts of the state, there's little spot fires. There was a spot fire that happened up in Cedar City the other day that burned, 60,000 acres just like that, and fortunately there were some circumstances they were able to get that under control and put it out. But it's a unique combination of circumstances. Right. You can't blame it on one thing. Right.
We wish we could.
Yes.
I wish
there was just a solution,
Yes.
Now, a lot more water would help.
Yes.
The drought has been catastrophic. And my son-in-law, who actually works with the BLM and is now on a fire in Oregon, he manages the tankers. When you see those big tankers flying in, dropping retardant, he manages those. He's up in Oregon right now. It's been so smoky, they haven't been able to fly. Oh, so he's actually been sitting there for a few days.
They have to be careful, especially after the firefighters, right?
Yes. This catastrophic, there's such a... And those are the terrible things. We lost 3 firefighters over on the Colorado-Utah border early on. Right. And then this week, we lost 2 helicopter pilots. And in talking to Mike Maurer, who runs the aviation program at SUU, he was telling me that helicopter they were flying is one that is very safe. Typically, they don't see accidents like that happen. But something happened. They land, as you read the articles and talk to people about it, it landed in an area of the fire, and the crash actually started some more vegetation on fire, which created a situation where they had a very, very difficult time to get in and extract, those victims and get them out.
So sad.
It is, and it's terrible. And so I hope, number one, that we appreciate the people that are fighting those fires first. People that put on a uniform, it doesn't matter what they do, whether they're in the military, whether in law enforcement, fire, and other things, first responders, we need to be grateful for what they do for us. Yeah. They are putting their lives on the line. They've proven it this week.
For sure. We've seen it.
Going back to the circumstances, the drought has brought some catastrophic conditions. Here again, relying on my son-in-law, he's always keep me apprised of what the moisture content in the trees, because they measure that. His work is in fire and timber, and they're constantly measuring the moisture content in the vegetation. Typically, the moisture content in a tree is enough that it protects the tree. It goes up the trunk, protects the tree. So when a fire comes through, if you have a large tree, it will burn, some of the bottom limbs, but the moisture content in the trunk actually saves the tree and preserves the tree. The drought conditions has lowered the moisture content to the point that some of those trees are exploding as these fires come through. It's just completely different environment than we've had in the past. The vegetation is heavy, so you can go to treatment, prevention. We know, from fact, when I got involved with wildland fire issues in the state of Utah about 10 years ago, we were putting money into prevention projects. We were pulling some money out of a restricted account. It was a modest amount, $1.5 million to $4 million a year, but we were identifying projects around the state to protect high risk areas.
Right.
For example, about 2 years before the Brian Head fire, we did a prevention project around that area in conjunction with the Forest Service, by the way, and it actually protected Brian Head Town. As I was talking to the Public Works Director after the Brian Head fire, he said if we had not done that prevention project, Brian Head Town would have burned. So we look for key areas, watersheds, protecting watersheds, those types of things. The federal government used to put about 3% of their budget into prevention and protection. It's now below 1%. So it's all moved over to suppression, which is a risky move, because we know that for every dollar that we put into prevention, we get about anywhere from $25 to $75 back in return.
Right.
With the prime example of Brian Head.
Right.
You can look at defensible space. If you remember the New Harmony fire that came along the freeway, I-15, a number of years ago, if you remember, there was cabins that were in the middle of those trees that were burnt completely to the ground, and others were still standing.
Right.
If you look at the differences, they had defensible space around their buildings.
Right.
So that's a key. So homeowners need to take responsibility. So people that build cabins or homes in high-risk areas, these wildland urban interface areas, they need to make sure that they're creating defensible space. They recommend at least 100 feet of cleared space, around an entity. We have a cabin over between Panguish and Panguish Lake. We don't have a lot of timber on there. We have some sagebrush, but we've made sure that we have that clear defensible space. So back to that, do we need to do more? Yes. We've done a lot of projects. We've done projects with the combination with the state and the county and the federal government, either the BLM or the Forest Service, in what they call shared stewardship projects. A number of them on the Monroe Mountain, and when a fire went through there, it helped protect those areas. We've done on the Beaver Mountain, and this Beaver Mountain fire, those areas that had those shared stewardship projects, it didn't stop the fire, but it did slow it down, and it also didn't burn as hot as some of the other areas.
Right.
The circumstances with the drought and everything that's going on has led to just overriding some of the prevention projects we've done. Going forward, we need to make sure that we are getting as much money as we can from the BLM and the Forest Service going into those projects. We need to start doing a better job on the state level, putting more money into those kind of things as well, and then the reforestation afterwards.
Right.
If nothing else, it's been a wake-up call for me, looking at what happens if you see, because when you get a fire, you get floods.
Right.
You look at the Beaver fire, and that's a prime example.
Right.
We need to do on the state level, we need to make sure that we have adequate funds going into prevention.
Right.
We have adequate funds going into suppression, which we've done a good job there, and I helped actually set up that fire suppression fund with a stream of money going into it. And then restoration, going back, and reforestation, so we can get it growing quickly so it'll maintain the water and it will grow back up. And then just emergency preparedness for some of these things like floods and fires that destroy people's property and things that they don't have the ability to recover from, whether it be a community or an individual. And so we just need to make sure that we've got adequate funds going into those accounts. That's something I think we need to prioritize this next session. That's something we need to really look at, and hopefully this has been a wake-up call for everybody.
I hope so. Weeks before this happened, when they were banning fireworks, and I started kind of taking a look at wildfires in the state of Utah, I saw that, it's over 20% of our fires are from these unmanaged forests, from the debris. And so I think that there's definitely, if we're going to ban fireworks that only cause 5%, I think there's definitely a case that we need to be focused on these larger areas that maybe we could, you're not going to stop every wildfire, but maybe prevent them from conditions that would make them worse, right?
If you go back in time and start looking at how things were managed previously, 70, 80 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Fires typically came through and burned things out. It burnt the undergrowth, took it out and kind of cleaned things up.
Right.
It'd take some trees and do some damage, but for the most part, it was a cleansing process.
Right.
What's happened is we don't go in and treat, and we don't do some of those prevention projects, and that it allows the undergrowth to build up so much that when it burns hotter.
Right.
And it takes out that tree. Going back to that tree that was protected by the moisture content,
right.
It's so hot that it can't withstand that.
Right.
So we need to work on that. Now, can we treat every inch of the forest? No, there's some areas that are just too steep and inaccessible. We can't.
Right.
But major areas around communities, around fire, around watersheds, and those types of things, we need to make sure that we're getting in and doing treatments in those areas.
Right. Particularly with the Beaver fire, because that is so close to home, right? I mean, a lot of us either people I know have cabins, very good friends of ours. In fact, I was telling you earlier, we had friends who had turned on the news to see how bad the flood was, and they saw their sofa going down the river, and they were like, "Oh, I guess it's really bad." Yeah. So, and I know you spent some time there. There were a lot of leaders. I saw Celeste organized for a lot of leaders on the 24th. Did you say of July? Do you want to just share some of that experience with gathering with federal authorities, other people who really are paying attention to what's happening here in the state of Utah?
Yeah, number one, Beaver's home. I was born in Panguitch, but I grew up in Beaver. And so that was really personal, because in my lifetime, through my childhood, that was my playground.
Right.
Growing up there, I literally spent time on every one of those areas that burned. We used to own property right up where part of the burn went through by LeBaron. And Congresswoman Malloy put together a group of people to meet on the 24th of July in Beaver. And she brought in, Speaker Schultz, President Adams. She brought in Senator Curtis. She had Congressman Kennedy and Burgess Owens. She also brought in the Undersecretary of Agriculture, who is over the Forest Service, Undersecretary Boren. She brought in some high-ranking officials from the Department of the Interior. She brought in the chair of the Natural Resource Committee, a congressman from Arkansas, who is also he has a background in timber, and so he's very knowledgeable in those areas. Brought all these people, along with the local the mayor, Mayor Robinson, county commissioners, and others, that we met together and toured the flood, the areas that had been flooded, and saw that. And that was so sad for me, because, like I say, a lot of those people are my close friends, and to see what has happened there. And then we met with the grazers, people that are being, their living is being affected by what's going on with this fire. There were some loggers, there, same thing. And we had very positive discussions about it, and not meaning that everything's hunky-dory, because there was a lot of criticism going back and forth and things in discussions. And then we did a press conference up the mouth of the canyon where the fire started. One positive thing, and it gives you great hope, especially with the Trump administration, as this undersecretary, who is over the Forest Service, listened in that grazing meeting, had discussions with the loggers. After that was over, he cornered the logger who was there from Paiute County and said, "I'm going to make some phone calls and give you this project. I'm going to open up this project right now and award that to you so that you can start logging these trees while they still have value." When a fire goes through, if there's trees still standing, they have value for a certain period of time. And then after they've been standing so long, they rot out and there's just really very little value left. So he says, "I'm going to open that up so that you can get in there and start logging these trees right now." And he said, "Well, I have 2 or 3 other contracts and with the federal government." He says, "Don't worry about it." He says, "I'm going to make sure that those are delayed for 2 or 3 years. You will not lose those. But the priority is this." And so I thought, how often do you see a federal government agent take that kind of action? Quickly.
Right? The federal government, we're used to them moving so slowly.
So I was blown away by that. President Adams was there working with him, and he's the one who was relaying that message to me. So I guess some positive things have come out of that.
That's good to hear.
But yeah, it's a catastrophic year. Hopefully some of these monsoon rains will come in and ease that, although you do get lightning with some of those, and you run the risk of starting others.
Right. And flooding.
So, yes.
Especially on those burn scars.
Yeah, and that's what happens.
Right.
You know, and it's going to take years for Beaver to recover. Now, the challenge with the Beaver Mountain is there's one road in on the east side, there's one road in on the west side. And on the Beaver side, if you're familiar with that canyon road, it's oiled up to the top, you know, where it goes up to the ski resort. And the
Mom, can I wrap up?
The S curves up toward, you know, by Mahogany Cove, and that it's a major construction over the years. When I was growing up, that was just a one-lane dirt road, another story. But I've talked to Carlos Braceras last week at the One Utah Summit. They've been doing some drone assessment to determine it's going to take $200 to $300 million to replace that road.
Oh, wow.
And so they're working hard on the Marysville side to repair that road so people can have access to get up into their properties. So this is not an overnight, just quick fix.
This is going to take a lot of time.
And I think you're going to see some similar things happening, you know, with the Widemouth Fire, you know, with Kanosh and other areas of the state.
Right.
On a positive note, this week, the federal government did put in $9 million. The state is matching that with $9 million to specifically look at the Cottonwood Fire, which is the Beaver Fire, in forest restoration and start working in that area. So there is money going in, but it is still going to take a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of time.
Right. Oh, well, I appreciate all of the effort that's going into this. I think obviously we can't prevent natural disasters.
No.
But I appreciate people really taking time, especially on a state holiday, to go and to let the people of Beaver know that, hey, these things matter. To let the people of Utah really know, like, hey, we're gonna see what we can do moving forward. We're gonna try to get as much funding as we can to these things to hopefully help these communities heal.
Representative Albrecht and I represent Beaver County. He also represents the other side. So he's had multiple big fires in his district in the last few years. And so this fire with Kanosh is burning over into his area. So, you know, we've talked a lot. You know, he and I talk an awful lot. We work together on a lot of things. And I don't know, we've just never seen anything like this.
Right. So. Just very extraordinary conditions this year. Really, for the last few years, I feel like it all kind of teed it up for this particular.
On a positive note, when that flood came through, it took out their water system, and the word went out. It was a Sunday evening, you know, that happened that Sunday afternoon, and that Sunday evening, I started getting calls. Representative Albrecht and I were talking. What can we do? I got a call from President Benson, Mindy Benson, SUU, so Utah Tech, Dixie Tech, Southwest Tech, Snow College, all got together, pooled some resources, making sure that water was available to the people of Beaver, so the truckloads of bottled water. My neighbor and I, we found 50-gallon barrels. We took them down to SUU. They filled them up with water and took them over so people would have water, you know, that they could use. And I guess, you know, people responded. And then was it last Saturday that they had over 2,000 volunteers show up in Beaver to go start mucking out and, you know, moving mud and debris and out to the road so that they could be collected. And so I guess on a positive note, people of Utah respond and people of Southern Utah respond.
Right.
And I guess we can take heart in that we're taking care of each other.
That is one of my favorite things about Utah specifically. I love people I was not surprised when I pulled up my social media feed and saw all of these people, hey, we need people to donate. We want to send bottled water to Beaver. I'm like, oh, that is so Utah. I love that everybody takes care of each other. So
I had a friend of mine call me that Monday when everything was starting to go over. He says, hey, I'm in Beaver. I got a truckload of water. Where do I take it?
That's perfect. And luckily you're from there, so you probably knew exactly where they needed to take it.
Yeah, I won't course.
So I love that. I love ending that on a positive note.
Yeah.
So let's talk we're going to shift gears.
Okay.
I appreciate all of the work that's gone into that. So maybe let's talk about this Medicaid shortfall that happened here in the state of Utah, maybe just briefly.
Yeah, and that's not a story that's really hit the news, but some things going on behind the scenes.
Okay.
In Utah, we do have rainy day funds,
Right.
which is a positive, and we have a Medicaid rainy day fund.
Right.
We have money in accounts that can take care of things like this, but there was a billing system changed a few years, I think it was 3 years ago, and leading up from that, Murphy's Law kind of took over, and some of the things, there was delayment in payments to hospitals and providers and others, including pharmacies like ours and others, but that was kind of corrected. Moving forward, there was a combination of events that happened. Some of the projections were based on older data that wasn't accurate, so that kind of recreated a challenge. And then with COVID, there was a bunch of people came onto Medicaid. Now some of those are going off, and with that, estimating how many people are going to be on Medicaid, how many aren't. Right. It led to a situation where we have about $130 million a year shortfall in Medicaid. Okay. Sounds like a lot of money. Actually, the money is in place to correct that. Okay. We have to make sure that we're doing that, and our executive appropriation, which is our leadership teams, are working through that and correcting that. Right. Going forward, we'll have to make some adjustments. Right. But we can do that. Okay. Comparatively speaking, so it's starting last session because of the big beautiful bill, which raised the standard deduction, which led to a decrease in income tax collection in the state of Utah. We were $300 million a year behind in that. Okay, so and we didn't necessarily have the money to fix that. We had to do it through the budget process. The positive note on this is we do have the money in place. Okay. We will need to correct it going forward. Okay. So it'll be something we deal with in this session.
So I appreciate that the legislature is prepared to handle something like this, because that does sound like a huge amount of money. And so obviously there's probably some foresight that goes on into that rainy day fund of, hey, we need to be prepared if there are things that we really can't overcome within our budget that maybe were unforeseen, or we weren't maybe quite as prepared or didn't have the right information to make those decisions.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that the legislature was kind of ahead on that. That's good to know. All right, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we will talk more about maybe the leadership race and some of the things that are really good coming out of the state of Utah. We'll see you in a minute.
Tired of media bias? Frustrated by political noise? PoliticIt.com cuts through the clutter, giving you real facts, clear analysis, and unbiased insight on the issues that matter most. Stay informed, stay empowered. Whether it's elections, policy changes, or breaking news, we've got you covered. No spin, no agendas, just truth you can trust. Visit PoliticIt.com today, because informed citizens shape the future. PoliticIt.com, where politics meets clarity.
Okay, welcome back from the break. I am back here again with Senator Vickers, and we're going to just talk a little bit about some leadership changes that are happening in the Senate in the state of Utah. So with President Adams, do you want to just kind of maybe talk to us a little bit about what's going on there and your run for leadership?
Yeah, so I will tell you this right up front. We're going to miss Stuart Adams.
Yes.
Stuart Adams was an amazing man. I had the privilege of serving under him for 8 years, 6 years as majority leader. And I served with him prior to that for 1 year when I was vice chair of the budget appropriations process, and he was in leadership, but not as the president. I was under President Niederhauser. And his loss is big. There's so many things that President Adams has done in his 8 years as Senate president that a lot of those things the public will never even know, because they were done a lot behind the scenes and that. But he has guided us and helped guide the state of Utah into a very good place. So number one, we are really going to miss him. Circumstances are they are, in politics. Had a good friend of mine tell me, he says the best way to lose a race is keep running, and sometimes that happens. Yes, and in this case, President Adams did lose. There were some circumstances that led to that. Discussions about a data center in Box Elder County, his involvement with MIDA, who was involved with that data center.
Right.
A couple of other things that were really, unfortunately, blown out of proportion, and they weren't really accurate when they brought in some things with involving his family and other things on a particular bill. That was totally inappropriate, and the way the press handled that was just not right. But those things led to him losing in the primary.
Right.
And so fast forward, that means that there will be a change in leadership in the Senate. I was, as I mentioned, I spent 7 years in leadership. 2 years ago, I lost in my re-election bid to Senator Cullimore to be the majority leader. It was a close race. That was painful. I made up my mind going in that I was going to handle it as well as I possibly could. Coming out of it, it's been hard, but I think the best thing that happened to me is I lost. Yes. Because I've been able to sit back and observe, kind of build upon my experience in the legislature. I've served under 4 different leaders, 2 in the House, Speaker Clark, Speaker Lockhart, and then President Niederhauser and President Adams. Kind of glean from those. What are some things that maybe we could do a little different? Not that anything's broken at all, but what could we do to involve some more voices in leadership and more voices in the caucus, more voices in the appropriation process, some of those types of things. So that's led to, and those of us in rural southern Utah in particular, there are 5 of us that we were looking at how could we possibly have more say in the leadership process, expecting President Adams to come back.
Right.
When he lost, then that changed the dynamics.
Right.
And so we started looking, okay, is it feasible for somebody from rural southern Utah to win as Senate President? I started making some phone calls and just testing the waters, and yes, it is feasible. Right. And the momentum's going well, and the progress is going well, but it's an internal process. Okay. It's literally just working with each individual senator in the Republican caucus and trying to win their vote. Right. And so as we move forward, it'll be a challenge between myself and Senator Cullimore, who's an amazing guy. He's got a lot of talent. He lives on the Wasatch Front. We'll see how it turns out. We've never had a Senate president from Southern Utah. Right. So, it's possible, maybe you have a little bit of history. Yes. And maybe just a different perspective on things. And and I'm fine however it turns out. Right. I literally have nothing to lose.
That's right. And I love that mentality of I don't have anything to lose. I'm just offering what I have to and my experience to this, right? I think there's this quote that says, you never actually lose if when you lose, you learn something, right? You keep growing, you keep moving forward. And I think that's the best approach you can take to losing. Like, hey, okay, I lost this race a couple years ago. What can I learn? What can I sit back? How do I take a look at how I could do things differently and then keep moving forward. That's the very best approach. And obviously, like being from a more rural part of Utah, I think it would be really great to have leadership be able to listen to some of the issues we were discussing earlier. There are issues in rural Utah that maybe are very different from what they are facing on the Wasatch Front. And so how do we get that larger voice and representation? And it's always great to have people throw their hat in the ring for that. So
yeah, well, thanks. And I will tell you that a leadership race is the worst experience that we have in the legislator's life. Both from the person who's running and the person who's trying to vote, because you pit friend against friend. Right. It is a private vote. It's one that's not made public, and those things are challenging. I literally just want to try to use my experience in the legislature for the next couple of years to be a servant to the caucus and see how we as a Republican Senate caucus can do a better job collectively.
Well, and I think it's interesting, obviously we don't hear a lot about these Senate races. Yeah. So I think it's a little bit intriguing to the public because it is a private vote. That's like the one vote you won't know where your senator voted on it. So you could probably guess, but we'll never know. And so I think that kind of almost gives it like this air of intrigue to it. Like people really want to know about it. And so I appreciate you being willing to even talk about it on here.
Yeah, and like I say, it's an internal process, and
Right.
that's, that's going forward. That's what it is.
Right. So, but that is hard because the Senate is different from the House in that you have such a tight knit caucus.
Yeah.
It's such a small group of friends, many of people that you've worked a very long time with, but then you also have those two new. There are at least two.
No, there's 5 new senators, new Republican senators coming in, and 1 Democrat. So there'll be 6 new in the body, which is a lot
for such a small caucus.
Yeah, we're a body of 29.
Right.
23 Republicans, 6 Democrats. So
Right.
to change 6 out of that 20, that's a big portion. The House, they change 15 to 20 every year.
Right.
We're used to 1 or 2.
Right.
This year is a unique set of circumstances, and we have 5 new ones coming in. We had 2 incumbents lose in the primary, which is unique.
Right.
And maybe that's a signal. I don't know. But anyway, it will be different.
Yes.
There's no getting around it.
So this is bound to be a very interesting. It'll be an interesting.
2 of those new members will be coming from the House.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Doug Fiafia and
Cofer.
Joe Cofer. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that and so you'll have had some interaction with those 2.
Obviously.
But then you'll have the 3 newbies that. Wait, did you say they're 5?
5.
Yeah. So 3 others to the Republican.
Yeah, that have not had legislative experience.
Right.
Yeah, and 1 is a mayor, and this is assuming those districts that they're running.
Oh, that's true.
Still have elections in November.
Right.
But they are heavily Republican districts, so we're expecting them to win.
Because we do assume that. We're down here in Dixie where Republicans always win.
Just like with the Democrat, she's also got a race to run.
Right.
But it's a heavily Democratic district, so we're assuming that she will win that.
Right, that it leans that way.
Now, there's always some changes that could happen in November, and that would be unique.
Right.
But, going forward. So one of the individuals on the Republican side is the mayor from Kaysville. Okay. And then another one is an attorney that was with Weaver State for a long time, now is in private practice. Okay. And then another guy who is he's an amazing guy. He's got a lot of experience and been doing consulting work and other things, and he's been involved in the party and and been engaged in the political process, and so they're all going to be great additions. They will, even the ones that have had some House experience, it'll be a different experience for them. I can tell them that because I came from the House.
Right,
when I moved into the Senate. It'll be a little different. You're going to be busier than you ever thought you would be.
Right.
But it'll be good. It's going to be positive. We'll have some new voices, new ideas. Maybe, and that, if nothing else, that's an opportunity to start looking at just evaluating.
Right.
What are things we can do better?
Right. Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
So there are obviously things that the Senate can do to improve. Like we've seen some things like with MIDA and maybe taking a second look at that. But there's a lot of great things that are coming out of the legislature. A lot of awards that we're winning national accolades on. Yeah. So should we talk about those real quick before we wrap up? Let's talk about the good stuff.
There's this litany of things that we keep winning.
Yes.
We've been touted as the best managed state for years.
Right.
With the ALEC awards that come out, and they evaluate every state based on economic opportunity going forward. Right. We've been number 1, and that's a big deal, but now we've been number 1 18 years in a row. Right. U.S. News and World Reports, we're ranked number 1 again for the best state. Well, that's 4 years in a row. They've never done that in the past.
Wow.
There's a litany of things. If you start going deep into the woods, there's about 20 different rankings that we're either number 1 or in the top 3 or 4 on every one of those rankings. So we're doing things right. Yes. And part of that process is things that we've set up in the past, how we handle our budget. Right. Every legislator's involved, and every legislator's involved in the budget process. Mm-hmm. They're on an appropriation committee. We have a base budget. We set a base budget so that we will never have to do a continuing resolution like federal government does. Right. Because if all else fails and it blows up on the last night of the session, we don't get a budget, we've already passed a base budget early in the session that keeps government funding. Okay. Those types of things. And you have to go back, sometimes 40 years, to some of the legislators who were in place then that's had the foresight to see these things coming forward. and set that process up.
Right.
Our legislative audit committee, Kate Minchie, who is the Auditor General now, other states are coming to us and saying, how do you do that? Because they don't do that. They don't have that process. So there's a lot of really good things we do in the state. But I got to tell you, we're terrible at telling that story.
That's part of the reason I started the podcast.
Yeah, we don't do a good job of letting the public know what we're attacking, why we're attacking it, and why we're doing it this way.
Yes.
We've got to do a better job going forward.
Yes.
And we've seen that as the public hasn't been with us on some things.
Right.
Starting with tax reform, you talk about Prop 4, you talk about some things trying to do there. Some of the things that are going on in the courts, not all, but some.
Right.
There just we haven't done a good job of letting the public have the time and the resources to digest what's going on.
Right.
Some of that comes from the nature of our compressed session, 45 days, trying to get an awful lot done in a short period of time.
Right.
But at the same token, I think we could do a much better job of identifying some of those issues earlier on.
Right.
And spending time with the public trying to figure that out.
Right.
And so that's something we got to work on.
It is hard, I feel like, when you're focused on driving solutions. And again, that foresight that you talked about from 40 years ago, I know that the legislature is worried about what's this going to look like for this next generation of kids trying to buy homes in the state of Utah. Y'all are always trying to think ahead, and so I think sometimes it's hard that probably the very last thing on your minds is like, oh, we're trying to drive solutions here for the state of Utah. How is this going to look? How could this be spun in a direction that maybe doesn't make us look so favorably in public opinion?
Yeah.
I think that's a challenging there's a challenging balancing act for the legislature.
Yeah, we've got to invest, obviously, as legislators. Some are better than others,
Right.
But we've got to invest in some resources that can help us do that.
Right. Communicate what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I so appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like as we talked earlier about, a huge shortfall for Medicaid, but guess what? We have a rainy day fund. We're prepared. We're ready to go for that. I was saying, I'm like, how many states actually could say that, right?
Yeah.
That they could say, okay, well, you know what? We misjudged here, but we're prepared for that, and we'll have to fix this moving forward. And I just appreciate the foresight that goes into a lot of these decisions and a lot of the preparation so that we don't have to raise taxes.
Yeah, and we've got to get that message out.
Right.
And we still have really good resources right now that are doing things. Each one of us as individual legislators work with our staff to send out messages each month. And, I have 19,000 email addresses in my district of registered voters, all flavors, that it goes out to. And but I also have some local papers that print the stuff, and in our websites, the Senate website, we do a great job there. The House does as well. I guess we've just kind of got to ramp that up.
Right.
Take what we're doing, take the things we're doing well, ramp that up, and try to figure out a way to broaden that out.
Right.
There's a few people that are doing some podcasts like yours and others, and we appreciate that. Getting those messages out. But we just need to evaluate and see where we can improve.
Yes.
Here again, it's always working about how can we be better.
Yes, I like that. And I like that. I hope that that's what we're always doing. I do think that that's what Utah does well. That's probably the story of America too. What can we do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all of our stories. So I appreciate all of the work going into the legislature on this. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. We're excited at all of these things happening, not just in the legislature, but specifically the Senate and this race, and excited for whatever the outcome is, and hopefully we will get some good leadership for the state of Utah moving forward, and appreciate your service there. We didn't mention this. How long have you been serving?
So this is my 18th year in the legislature.
Only 18 years of your life. 4
years in the House.
Okay.
And 14 in the Senate. And, my career's winding down. I am up for re-election this year if I'm successful.
Which you will be.
That's 4 years, and,
yes.
quite frankly, that's enough.
Okay.
Things, it's time to move on and allow some others. And that's one of the reasons I'm, thinking about how can I, in my last 4 years, use my experience and hopefully wisdom to help the Senate do a better job.
Yes.
And so that's what we do. Somebody else will step up,
right,
and they'll do a great job. They'll
yes.
step in and do a great job. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in the legislature. It's been a wonderful experience, and I would not trade it for anything. Even some of the terrible primaries I've had to go through and other
yes.
things, but that's just the nature. That's what
yes.
Be careful what you wish for.
Well, something tells me that win or lose, you're going to take that 18 years of experience and use it for the next 4 years to benefit the Senate, benefit the legislature, no matter what.
I definitely will do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming on today and for taking time to join us again on the PoliticIt podcast.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good day. We'll see ya.